Okay, listen to me. I have discovered what an absolute nerd I am because of this next guest. Okay. I've discovered that the things that absolutely excite me are insane. So I'm in a mentorship program with a whole bunch of other crazy medical providers like me, other medical disruptors. This is a group of doctors, NPs, PAs, we've all seen the light and we all came over to the vortex. And we do a mentorship with Dr. Neil Nathan, who, if you don't know, he's like the mold guru. If you're dealing with mold, get his book. That's not who's here today, but he will be next week. Anyway, so this is where I found Dr. Gabriela Pichardo. This is I learned how to say it, and you're going to meet her in a moment. But we had a whole list of questions that we're going to go through. But instead, she starts hitting me with all the top hitters: medical genomics, Lyme, mold, fibromyalgia. And every time I'm getting more and more excited. And I realize somewhere through the show that the things that get me excited are absolutely bonkers. Anyway, it's time for you to meet another medical disruptor, Dr. Gabriela Pichardo. She is a board certified physician in both internal medicine and integrative medicine. Just like me, she started with her internal medicine first and then realized there's more to it and did a deep dive in integrative medicine. And she refers to herself as a medical detective. She specializes in managing and treating patients with chronic Lyme disease, co-infections, and mold-related illnesses. She's amazing. Let's go. I want you to meet her, another medical disruptor that you can work with if you want to. Here we go. So this week's medical disruptor is, I'm going to try to say it, Gabriela Pichardo. Pichardo.
Pichardo, you got it.
Wait, I'm going to do it again. Dr. Gabriela Pichardo.
Yes.
Okay, amazing.
Love it.
But she gave me permission to call her it's Gabriela, but she gave me permission to call her Gabriela for the rest of the show.
Yes.
Thank you. First of all, thank you so much for being here and taking the time.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
It's good. So this season, I used to spend the beginning of the seasons, I used to really educate, but this season, what I'm trying to do, the podcast is called Medical Disruptor, and I'm trying to introduce the rest of the world to other medical disruptors because it's really about getting them access and letting them know that there's more than just their annual visit with their PCP.
Right.
Right before we started, we talked about, I want to start with your origin story because anyone who listens to me already knows my origin story. I practiced conventional medicine. My wife got sick. I knew there was no answers. Mm-hmm. We found more answers, and then I brought it back and changed my practice. Tell us your origin story.
Yes. So my origin story, it started several years back. I was pretty much practicing conventional medicine, primary care, right here in Texas. And then I was going through the stresses of your daily life, burnout, getting patients in and out. I wasn't like truly happy with what I was doing. And I was going through difficult timing with getting divorced and having a 3-year-old toddler. So that was a bit challenging. And somebody talked to me about an amazing conference in San Diego, which is about integrative medicine. And it was actually hosted by IHM, which is actually whom I later joined and did my fellowship. So I was blown away. When I went to this conference, I was like, oh my God, I felt like there's other people that want to do more. There's other people that are like in the same boat as I am. And in a sort of way, I started learning about meditation, forest bathing. I was actually even hugging trees.
The true tree hugger. Like, we found one.
With a bunch of people I know, strangers, and we bonded. And we started talking about our life experience and everything else. And then I started learning about a little bit about different healing modalities in terms of herbal therapy, acupuncture, meditation, all of that. And I'm like, in the beginning, it was more to learn for myself. And I was always driven to that. But in another way, I was like, you know what? I want to learn these. I want to learn this so I can bring it up to my patients. I did not recall back then when I actually asked my patient, how was your sleep?
Oh my God, no.
Or time. Beliefs. What are you eating? I never touched that with any of my patients. It was so like very robotic. Okay, you have a headache? Sure. Take this and move on. So I was like, I need to do this. I need to learn this. I did my fellowship training, which was about 2.5 years or so through the IHM, which is the Academy of Integrative Health Medicine. And I bonded with other practitioners that they were all from across the globe. There was even multiple specialists, like I was saying, GI, P, chiropractor, etc. And I was like, this is the way we should practice medicine.
Yes.
This is what medicine is supposed to be.
So
And
interesting.
yeah. And moving forward, obviously, even though I try my best to incorporate it where I was working at, it was not working. They were actually, my patient satisfaction was actually going up. Like
But your volume was going down.
the volume was going down. Exactly. So obviously they were not too happy about that. They were like, we're going to have to start cutting your salary and you
Sure.
produce more. And when they always try to give you incentive and all that. And I was like, this is not for me. So I left. It was a great experience that I got from
my God.
I decided I want to practice truly integrative, holistic medicine my way and spend the time that I want with my patients.
So you just touched on so many disruptive topics here, right? First, I have to say you're one of the first providers that I've met. Usually the providers that I've met, something either happened to them health-wise or someone that they loved and they went searching. You went like purely academic. Let me check what this is. And you're like, oh my God, which I love that because there's so much validation in that. You're like, I don't have any health issues. It's not even subjective. I'm just drawn to it. Let's see what happens. And you also described this thing that I think every disruptor feels, which is you suddenly discover this world that you didn't know existed.
Yep.
Spend all this time in med school learning, here's your disease, here's your medication, and not in a malicious way, really thinking that you were doing the right thing, right? That's the worst part about it. I call myself a recovering medical gaslighter because I didn't know.
Who's that?
I didn't know, right? This is what you're taught. You really think you're doing the right, there are so many things. But before we go on, like the other piece I really want to mention that we haven't explored in my previous episodes, we don't have to explore it, but I just want to touch on it, is that how unrealistic it is to try to bring it to the practice. I tried also at first, and then eventually I had to create 2 different companies. It's just not realistic. The system is driven by diagnosis codes,
Right.
complexity.
True.
It is not driven by outcome, even though there's outcome-based, not really. It's not driven by outcome. It's not driven by patient satisfaction. It's not really driven by how healthy you make your patients at all. And without malice, like the doctors that you see are amazing people. They went to school. They really think they're doing the right thing, but the system is rigged. But before I go on, do I see an Apollo on your wrist?
I do.
Oh my God. Tell everybody what an Apollo is. We should get sponsored by Apollo. From one Apollo wearer to the other. Tell me what it is and why you wear it.
I have my Apollo. So it's a amazing device that's actually emitting certain vibrations to help stimulate your vagus nerve and activate your parasympathetic system. So I strongly recommend it to most of my patients.
Me too.
There's other devices that I've even tried, but this has been like more convenient because even when you're like in the run, I always put like a meditation setting or for sleep or anxiety. And I just love it. I just love it. And I definitely recommend for those that, especially now, these day and age, high stress,
Yes.
anxiety, a lot of people struggling with mental health. It's a good alternative, not to substitute
Sure.
treatment, but it's one of those therapies that you have access to, and why not?
Yeah. Especially for chronically ill, right? I know you see a lot of chronically ill, but right, chronically ill, they have to treat the physical and the metaphysical. And I think that really helps. Okay, so you got into it and all these, like you got to know the things. So tell me the type of patient that you see. And I imagine there was a progression of how it got there, right? So tell me about that.
Yes, because so when I tried to go on my own, COVID hit. So that was not that
Oh,
good for me.
that's rough.
To solo business owner and a wonderful doctor who I've met through my fellowship that introduced me to the wonderful world of medical genomics, which is another thing that I do too.
Nice.
Patients. She was like, hey, do you want to join my practice? I've been looking for like-minded doctor, such as yourself. I'm also integrative family med doctor, and I would love to have you. So I joined, and that's where I've been practicing for the last 5 years. And I'm currently now becoming the medical director for the practice. But I would have to say that my type of patients, I see wide variety of patients. Being that I'm board certified in internal medicine, then obviously my focus is mostly with adults. I can't see the little people and
Yeah. Yeah.
the kiddos or teenagers, things like that. But I see patients that come to see me mostly is a lot of people want to do preventive health. There are quote unquote not so sick, but they want to know as much as they can to help prevent progression of any disease. That's why the medical genomics come into play, because they want to know more and they want to really tackle their health. And being here in Austin, it's actually great because this population is always trying to seek what's the latest and health trends and what could they do to improve their health. And then I do see the other spectrum of the chronically ill patients that they have visited so many doctors. They're struggling with autoimmune conditions. They're struggling with chronic infections, which this is the other thing that happened to me. Because in the beginning, yes, when I joined integrative medicine, it was more curiosity. But for going halfway through doing my practice, I started having a lot of health issues of my own.
Mm.
I was struggling with a lot of issues pertaining to chronic pain, migraines, the brain fog, the chronic fatigue, the insomnia. And I started even myself seeking other specialists. I saw probably 5 different specialists, like rheumatologists.
Sure. You tried the regular route for yourself first too, huh?
Exactly. I did the regular route.
Sure,
And
sure.
I actually, moving fast forward around that time, I joined the mentorship program of Neil Nathan and Jill Krista.
That's where I got your name from.
Yes, yes.
We're gonna talk about that.
Yes. And through them, I actually started exploring the possibility of me having mold because I had an issue here in the house where I currently live. And we did found.
Okay, hold on. We're gonna do a deep dive into mold because I
Oh,
gotta pause. I gotta pause. I gotta pause. You just said a lot of things, and now I didn't know we were going down the mold road right yet. So
Yeah.
first, let me just say, so you see, because I asked you what kind of patients, I can't wait to talk about mold. Isn't that who says that? I can't wait to talk about mold. Only crazy people in the vortex. Okay. So first, for anyone listening who maybe is in Texas, and it's funny because I also see those two spectrums: the people who are ready for the longevity game, what are we doing, how are we preventing? And the
Yeah.
people who are chronically ill, they've been everywhere. How do I get out of this? So it's those two sides of the spectrum. And then before we get to the mold, you said a term that we haven't used on this podcast yet, and I really want to take a moment to talk about medical genomics, what that is, and
Yeah.
like in a really like layperson kind of explanation, and who should use it and why.
Sure. So medical genomics is pretty much studying the changes that occur within a gene. So sometimes this can be a change that might be clinically relevant and may not be actually that important. So the ones that we're actually studying and we use in the report is the ones that are clinically relevant. And like giving you an example, like when you are baking a cake, if you substitute a sugar for monk fruit or stevia, you still might have a good tasting, like the outcome may still be good. It's just maybe less sugar. But if you substitute it for salt, it's going to taste awful. So that's the one that we're going to focus on when we get any kind of report on a patient. A lot of things that we get is, and you probably heard about, obviously, MTHFR mutation, when people have poor methylation issues, the ApoE4, which is the strongly linked with increased risk for Alzheimer's disease. And there are so many more type of genetic variants that is studied within the medical genomics. And the beauty of this is also it keeps growing and expanding.
Yes.
It's such an evolving field.
So we're talking about the SNPs, right?
It's SNPs, exactly. Single nucleotide polymorphism.
Yes.
Yeah.
So for those listening, and then I promise to come back to mold. I have a lot of clients who are going to be like on the edge of their seats about your mold. So there are genetic tests you can run, and by the way, they're run by like regular labs like LabCorp or Quest. I don't know if I'm allowed to say those names, but whatever. And you can ask your provider to run them, and they give you a sense of what's happening with you genetically, and there are some actionable things around it, like the Alzheimer's gene. There's so much action around it. Some people are scared. They say, "I don't want to know." No, you want to know. You want to
Right.
know because then you need to double down and do the thing to prevent it.
Exactly.
So I love that you do that. Okay, so before you found out you had mold, you first went to the mentorship? Because I want to tell everyone what the mentorship is. Or
Mhm.
you thought you had mold and then you went to what was
So
the order of things?
actually, what happened first was I got a patient right at the start of the pandemic that it was actually on the news here, and she's been actually interviewed in podcasts, etc., and on the news because she had mold, serious mold problem, and up to like late last year, I was actually present at her court as an expert witness
Wow.
because there was litigation against the builders and the AC company, etc. So the main reason I joined the mentorship was because I had learned about it through my functional medicine training, but I didn't know what to do with it in terms of how to treat it. So
Right.
I actually told her, like, she was very happy that I was actually able to diagnose her with that because she was seeing so many doctors before. And I recommended her who she could go locally that has had more experience. And I'm like, you know what? I feel like I really want to learn this. I need to learn this. So I went ahead and joined the mentorship.
Yeah. So this mentorship, by the way, for those listening, it's only for providers,
Right.
crazy providers like us who are in the vortex. I keep on the vortex. Who because what we discover, and I'm sure you'll me, what we discover as we start to help so many people who can't be helped is that we're constantly on the cutting edge of learning something, and we're constantly have to learn. And so someone will come to you with mold or genetic SNPs, and you learn all about that. Now someone come with you molds, you have to really learn about that. Someone come to you with heavy metals, you have to learn about that because you're learning to help your patients, and it's like this never-ending learning. And since it's cutting edge, you don't have it in med school.
Yeah.
So this
I hate to tell a patient, like, oh, I don't know this.
I know, you're like,
Go
if
somewhere else.
I
Or
agree, let's do it, let's do this
I like,
together.
why not? If I'm interested,
Yes.
I always enjoy learning and reading
Mhm.
about something new or the latest. Yeah.
Exactly. So Dr. Neil Nathan, anyone who's suffering with mold, please buy his book. He's amazing. He is our mentor, and we're on this group. And so then that's how I found Gabriella and said, "Do you want to be on my podcast?" So you went on this. I love how you stumble into this always academically. It's so wonderful. So you went on this academically to help another human, and then you discovered you have mold. Tell us.
Yes, I actually probably about 2 years, because when I have seen this patient, it was at the start of the pandemic. So yeah, the pandemic was 2020. It's pre or post pandemic now. But I actually started having serious health issues. Like I mentioned before, it started subtle.
What were your symptoms?
So my main symptoms were the migraine. I always suffered from migraines since I was a child. And also through learning integrated medicine and knowing my genomics, like I had very bad genetic SNPs related to magnesium absorption and
Mm.
incorporated, and also have the methylation, several of the methylation SNP, not just
You
far.
can't absorb magnesium when you have migraines. Duh.
Exactly. And when I started to do things more, added my methylated Bs, riboflavin, and magnesium, my migraines got better. So I was feeling fine. But for some reason, I started back to back with chronic migraines. Like they were nonstop. And I was like, I'm using everything in my toolbox. What the heck is happening? Interesting enough, our AC had broken, like stopped working. And we called the company and they came by and they opened it up. And I saw, ooh, wow, this is bad. I saw a lot of black mold. And then they showed me that the whole inspection within the house. And then I decided, you know what? I need to test myself. This is probably why I'm not feeling great. And also, whenever the mold count was higher in Austin, I noticed my symptoms coming
Yeah.
up, spiking, flaring up more. Because of that, I was like, I did my test. I was like, oh gosh, I had several of the mycotoxins that were high. And I was like, okay, I need to take care of this. So I started down the road through also another fellow colleague of mine who's also integrative to get some help through her. And I started to do the whole mold
Protocol.
remediation, mold treatment on myself. Doing all of this, I also, because I was doing another training, again, like the academic approach.
Yeah, I love it.
Or I got offered I was doing a training through IGenics.
Yeah.
And I got offered to do a Lyme test.
Oh
Antibody.
boy. I gotta tell people what Igenics is, but yeah, go ahead.
Yes. And I was positive.
Okay, hold on. Pause in the story. Timeout, intermission. Everybody go grab your gluten-free snack. Okay. For those of you who don't know, you're just like hitting all the hits today. For those of you who don't know, Igenics, again, not affiliated, wish I was. Igenics is the only lab that you can use to rule out or rule in Lyme and other tick-borne diseases. If you feel like maybe you have symptoms of tick-borne diseases and you got a negative, I won't say the other labs, in the typical conventional insurance-based labs, you just throw it in the garbage, throw it in the shredder. That's not it. Igenics is the only one. It is an expensive test. I usually only suggest that to my patients if, one, they really have a history, they've been camping all the time, or two, we really hit a wall with everything else and we're like, okay, let's do this. So you, once again, just being on training, oh, let me just do this. Imagine they gave it to you either discounted or for free because you're in their training because it's very expensive.
They gave me a discount. Yep.
And voila, what kind of tick-borne disease did you have?
I have Burtinosis.
Oh, you went right for the top. Okay. Amazing.
Yes. I have Burtinosis, which looking back, I realized because I was struggling for a couple of years with some chronic pain in my joints. When I had seen the rheumatologist, because I do have autoimmune disease within my family with my mother, my rheumatologist said to me, you're behaving like you may have an autoimmune issue because of the degree of pain, because they actually examined me.
Yeah.
They classify as fibromyalgia.
Why are you hitting all the hits right now? Why are you hitting all the hits? Okay, we're coming back to fibromyalgia. Every time I have to come back with everything you say. Okay, put a pin in fibromyalgia, everyone. Go back.
Yeah. But then she said she did notice that I was having some swelling on my joints, like they would flare up. And she said, come to me, keep doing what you're doing. My CRP, my inflammatory marker, was high.
Of course.
Autoimmune panel, everything was negative. And she said, you know what? We're just monitor. Let's monitor.
Just watch it. We'll wait till it gets bad.
So she was like, she's a great doctor,
I'm
but
sure.
again, I wasn't getting the answer I wanted. And so I continued doing all my stuff with doing herbs, my curcumin, my SPF resolvents, anything that would tackle inflammation, I was taking to avoid taking pain medication. It came to a point that I was told, you're going to have to go see pain management. And I'm like, I don't want to be taking a narcotic every day. No, I was like, once I got that test back from Igenics, I was like, oh,
validation.
This explains quite a lot.
I'm not crazy.
And then when I reach out to my friend, who's she's also like a Lyme literate doctor, she recommended me the antibiotics. So I got into a regimen of antibiotics while I was still finishing detoxing from the mold.
Whoa, you did a lot all at once.
I did a lot, and it was rough, I was actually struggling to the point that I thought I was going to leave medicine. I was like, should I stop working? Can I modify my hours? But then I was like, I really don't want to.
Yeah.
But I got through it and started feeling better. I even did ozone infusion.
Hmm.
Some controversies around that, but I'm starting to get better. And I was like, my pain is actually going away. And I finished and did probably give or take 6 months, maybe a little bit over of antibiotics. And so far, things been great for me. This is just kind of happened
Yeah.
within the last 2 years or so.
But you also brought another good point, and I promise I'll come back to fibromyalgia. Is here you are, integrative medicine, and I will tell my story as well. And you took antibiotics. A lot of times people think that if you're holistic or integrative, you don't take antibiotics, and that's not true. That's not true at all. I have resistant H. pylori, and I'm on my second round of antibiotics. Of course, I tried initially with supplements. It was too resistant. But in the game of longevity, I don't know who needs to hear this, but in the game of longevity, in the game of trying to prevent Alzheimer's, you cannot walk around with a chronic infection and just opt out of antibiotics. Of course, I'm not saying take antibiotics if you have a cold, take it appropriately. But in order to eradicate some of these infections, you need antibiotics. And what I love about your approach, and I approach the same way, is that my feet are firmly planted in both worlds. When I need meds, I'm going to take meds. And when I can opt out and supplement. So you took all the supplements for mold, that's the binders and all those things. And I'm sure you did a lot of gut restoration through supplements and nutrition. But the antibiotics are the only way to get rid of it. So I'm really glad you mentioned that. I think people.
I've used herbals as well as antibiotic or a mix of two. And it's never easy. It's very challenging to manage these kind of patients. But when I knew that I was in the right track with the antibiotic, because same as yourself, I had started a little bit doing mostly herbals. But when I was put with antibiotics, I was actually on a medication for migraine prevention, the Emgality,
Mhm.
that I was doing once a month, plus taking my medication for migraines. And when I started with the antibiotics, I was able to stop taking anything related for migraines. So I
Amazing.
definitely that was like the very first thing that happened to me, and I'm like, okay, so I'm actually on the right track.
Yes.
This is my path. This is how I'm going to get better.
Oh my god, I love that so much. I love that so much. Okay, so now we have to talk about fibromyalgia
Yes.
because it was one of my most popular TikToks, one of my most popular YouTubes is a conversation of fibromyalgia, and it was popular also because people got mad at me. And if they got mad at me, it's because they didn't understand me. And you're a classic case of that. So, of course, fibromyalgia in the sense of the symptoms, of course, it's real. No question the patient's suffering. People were thinking I was invalidating it. Of course, there's no question you were suffering. But in that moment when the tests are negative in conventional medicine and you have all these tender points, you're relegated to fibromyalgia and it doesn't do anything for you. You happen to know what you needed to do, but the layperson, it actually works against them because now they go to the next provider and say, oh, by the way, I have fibromyalgia. And what does everyone in conventional medicine do when they hear a patient has fibromyalgia? What do?
Yeah, they completely disregard. They think it's not a real diagnosis, honestly. That's
The next doctor you walk into with your notes and you say, "Hi, I'm a drawer. Hi, I have fibromyalgia." They're like, they're not listening to you anymore. So it's such a disservice. It's such a disservice. And in your case, first of all, it's tick-borne, so the wrong test. But a lot of times I consider that pre-disease. Like your markers, you're seronegative. Your markers aren't there, but you're just on your way.
Mhm,
You're on your
mhm.
way. It's like a placeholder. Oh my
Right.
God. It's crazy. This is crazy. Okay. So you did more. What else do you, I feel like you need to tell me something. I need like another blindsiding moment. You've hit all the hits. What else do you have for me?
Yeah, so I got managed for the mold and the barn. I would have to say that I still have certain degree of pain here and there, but it's never like how it was before until I reached my diagnosis. And obviously, with this kind of field that we do, it keeps evolving because there's like new research or new treatment or new meds. And that's why also for the mentorship, I love it. I don't know if you feel the same way at times. Like sometimes I get lost. What we're like following the threads and email
Oh, I get
about
lost.
your treatment, and I'm like, oh wow, that actually could work. And you research it and learn it. And I like the sense of community to share some of our difficult cases to discuss
Yeah.
about people suffering with these kind of issues, because I have learned that with these kind of cases, it has to be an individualized plan. It has to be an individualized approach,
There's
which
no one size fits all.
exactly, which is what I commonly do. And sometimes I get patients coming in saying, yeah, because that's so and so did this, or they traveled here to do this. And I try to meet my patients where they are,
Mhm.
because a lot of these chronic issues, because again, they have been to so many doctors, they have spent a lot of money, they're already exhausted when they
Yeah.
see you. And it becomes a challenge, especially when you have to tell them you may have to do this test or you may have to pay for this test because a good majority of these tests are not covered under
Right.
insurance. Maybe someday we'll see.
I don't think so.
Yeah, yeah,
I don't think so because pharmaceutical is not involved.
exactly.
So
Exactly.
charcoal tabs are are not pharma driven. It's not gonna.
Easy solution, right?
Yeah, clay, charcoal. It's not gonna happen.
Yeah.
So mold, for those of you listening, it's amazing the symptoms that people have of mold. Things you can't imagine. People think initially mold like maybe respiratory, maybe
Right.
allergy type, joint pain, brain fog, stomach issues, skin issues, honestly, every kind of spectrum of unwellness that has not been diagnosed can often be matched to mold. And it's amazing that we're not dealing with that.
Yeah. And that's true. And what better, like when you're dealing with those kind of patients and they see so many doctors, and then yes, you test them and you correlate, you have to do a very good clinical, like being a bit of a medical detective. Like
Yes,
I,
you do.
I never did until I started doing this. I never did before about asking my patients, where do you live? Where do you work?
Yeah, when did you move? I always ask, when did you move to your current location? Because
Exactly.
they're like, "Oh, yeah, I moved 6 years ago." "Oh, you mean when all your symptoms started?"
Exactly. An environmental illness. It's an environmental problem, right?
Yes.
And this is how I got into the patient that I talked to you, that was like my very first patient that I even ended up going to court for. That's exactly what happened. She is a very successful lawyer. And because COVID hit, started to be working from home, staying more at home. She started having symptoms. Her kids starting having symptoms, had
Yes.
more like that pins or pandas
Yes.
type of picture
Yes.
with the inflammation, brain on fire. And even her husband was having some milder symptoms because, again, what people don't understand and what I see a lot is like, why am I sick and my partner or
Fine.
my wife's husband, whatever, are fine?
Yes.
And you can actually correlate this. And this is why I love doing the medical genomics also, because there are certain variants, certain SNPs that are related how our body detox.
Sure.
Oh,
Which
so
SNPs are related to mold detox? I'm not
there
aware.
is the ABCC1, which is actually in one of the reports, which is the report that I don't know if I'm allowed to say names, but the report that I'm using is called Intellex DNA. And oftentimes that is when people have that variant, they're not able to actually, the mold accumulates the
Yeah.
mycotoxin. So it actually, they have more brain symptoms, more neurological symptoms because they can cross the blood-brain barrier. So that has helped me, other than checking on their methylation and just trying to optimize, that has helped me in helping these kind of patients more and tackling not just lifestyle, diet, supplements. I do the whole thing for them as much as possible.
It's validating also to see
Yeah.
that they have that. The protocol, I imagine, stays the same regardless, but it's like validating from like when my patients have Hashimoto's and then we do some of the gluten sensitivity testing and you're like, yeah, it's validating because of that whole connection and the genetics around that. So I think I know the answer to this question, but what is the thing you love most about what you do?
I love being able to connect with my patients, being able to help them. I It feels like a sense of joy and satisfaction because when I went through my medical and health problems and visiting so many doctors and sometimes being a bit dismissed, I'm
Yep.
like, I was like, oh my God, I wonder how my patients feel. This is how they feel,
Yes.
and I'm like, it gives me more incentive to want to help them, to want
Yes.
to get them better. And it's very fulfilling. I don't see, even I have been asked if you would be able to go back, would you like not be a doctor? And I said, if I'm able to go back in time, I would have probably have gone into integrative medicine, functional medicine earlier. I would have done this way earlier. I wouldn't have wait. That's the only thing that I would say, but I would still probably have done up to now everything that I've done in terms of going to and become a medical doctor and
Yeah.
doing
Yeah.
training, etc., to help my
I
patients.
agree with you. And I think I love the foundation of having conventional medicine under my belt. I love knowing that because I think there are times, I'm sure you experience this, when people come to you and you're like, okay, I want to help you, but you really need to see these 5 specialists first. Sometimes it's not appropriate to just be here. You need to, and I think knowing what's appropriate to be in both worlds is very important. I think,
You don't want to dismiss something else, and that's why I do what I do. Like you said, having your feet on one foot in one world and the
yes,
other. Um, because I've had some patients that they have gone to somebody that perhaps they're only done like solely just focused on
yes, they have their own blinders on, right?
exactly, and then you have the very conventional type of provider or doctor or whoever. So I do like to combine these worlds and offer the patients the best that I can. And again, I'm still learning because
Always.
there's always something else out there. And I'm honest with my patients. If I see that there's something that I know another colleague or somebody else that does this kind
Yes.
of work functional, that it might be better or they have more expertise on that, I'm honest with it. And I'm gonna say, I think you should see this person. I
Absolutely.
and I also believe a lot into the medical intuition
Yes.
in terms of having that's like a sort of feeling about something. And then I'm like almost like I would say, I don't want to say 100% of the time, but I would say almost like 80, 90% of the time, I was like, oh, I'm in the right path.
Yes, yes. You get a sense of what's going on. You're like at this point, sometimes in the consult, I'm like, listen, I usually wait till like month 5 to do this test, but let's just do this test right now because this is where I think we are. I
Right.
agree with you. Yeah, you develop that. So, do you only work with people in Texas, or do you work with people everywhere?
So I'm currently, because of my licensing, I only currently here in Texas. I'm actually expanding my medical licensure. I just got one from Idaho, and I'm trying to go and do other states as well. But mostly is a in person. I do virtual for my own patients too. And it's more like a membership model. It's a concierge medicine type of practice because obviously health insurance doesn't
Yeah.
cover
No, Aldrich doesn't cover it.
a longer visit with a doctor. And my
Yeah.
patients love it. A lot of patients in the beginning, they're concerned because they have spent already some money and they're like, oh, but I really don't want to pay much more. But then when they have that first visit with us, with me, and then they actually see the value.
Different. Of course.
It's a different experience for them. So that's
Of course.
I would say the majority of our patients are happy with the
Of course
care.
they are.
Yeah.
Before I ask you how people can reach you, one of the things that I do and other crazy providers do in order to be able to cross state lines, we don't practice medicine across state lines. We just consult, and then we make sure that people have prescribing teams and medical teams in their state.
That we can do. Yeah.
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 So just know, I'm sure that's to say, because we do have kind of an international audience. And for example, I recently just started referring clients to this amazing woman for BHRT consultations. And then they take that consultation and they find their prescribers wherever in their state. And I'm giving lifestyle advice, but I want people to have their own team and get their own labs done and get their prescriptions done, all that. There's ways to, because it's all about accessing. And now some of my patients are very frustrated when they go back to their state and they're trying to get the things they need and they can't. But that's a different story. It's another episode.
Yeah, I hear you.
Tell people how they can make an appointment with you.
So to make an appointment, our current website is resilienthealthaustin.com. You can actually access the contact form through our current website.
Resilienthealthaustin.com. Okay, I just saw that.
Correct.
Okay.
Yes. And we do have a kind of like an email, which is memberships@resilienthealthaustin.com,
Okay.
where you can actually send email inquiring about if they want to make an appointment. I can also provide the main number. I'm trying to get a little bit more the word out there, especially for our practice, since we're growing. And we just acquired a brand new doctor who has also experience in integrative functional medicine.
Ooh, amazing.
So we're growing and we're expanding. Yeah.
That's amazing. So anyone who's thinking of working with me, I am slowing down and I'm trying not to take clients. So call Dr. Gabriela Pichardo. Make an appointment with her because she's amazing. This is great. Like everything I love talking about. There's like none of that, because I asked you when I talk about, none of those things were on the list. So it was like so amazing. Mold, Lyme, SNPs, yeah, fibromyalgia. I was like, yes. Okay, these are the things that get me excited, which is like bananas. Anything you want to tell our shared audience that maybe I forgot to ask you about that's important for you to get out there, or do you feel like we covered it all?
I think we covered the great majority. I would just have to say, for those that kind of struggle with chronic medical illness, I know sometimes things can get frustrating, but don't give up. There are doctors out there, such as yourself, like me, others, that we're putting the hard work, and we do care and we do want for our patients to get better. So I just want them to don't lose hope.
Don't lose hope. There's a whole, as I'm trying to put out here in this podcast this season, there are a lot of us out here. We really dedicate our lives to this, because once we see, we can't unsee. When we're here for you, just find us.
Yeah.
We're here, and you're not alone.
For yourself. Yes, I know that internet and Google, there's a lot out there that you have to be careful with information that is out there, but better place to get doctors that are doing functional. Obviously, you can check with the Institute of Functional Medicine. Dr. Neil Nathan has also a list of providers that are also under his mentorship. And also for people struggling with things like tick-borne illness, the ILATS is also a source, or the Lyme Alliance. Just go to reputable sources.
Yes, love.
Get recommendations for somebody that could actually tackle or take care of you.
I love that. Yeah. If you don't know where to start with the certification boards, they're not the medical certification boards, but like IFM, you said IHM, right?
IHM, which is
IFM, right? IHM, Dr. Neil Nathan. And what was the Lyme one? iLab?
Yeah, the iLabs, which Institute for the Lyme. Yeah.
Yeah. So what that means is that, by the way, these are, for those listening, and then I will wrap up, is that these are only certifications available for people who already have some sort of medical MD, PA, NP. So you already know that they're like well-versed in medicine.
Right.
And then they have to go a pretty rigorous certification process for various specialties. And so there's a lot of steps that these practitioners took to be able to take care of others. And that's a great place to start. I love that. That was really good advice. So, Gabriela, thank you so much for being here. You really made my day.
I enjoy my talk and looking forward to having another talk with you anytime.
Oh my God, yeah. We'll do this again.
Awesome.
Okay. Thank you for being here. Yeah, talk about more roles so I can get more excited. Thank you so much for being here.
You're welcome. Take care, Dr.
Bye.
Bye.